Hi, my name is John McAllister, and today I'm excited to share my conversation with three-time Commonwealth Game gold medalist in shooting turned bridge player and author, Kim Frazer. Kim wrote a book called Gaining the Mental Edge at Bridge, which is how I first got introduced to her. And frankly, I thought I need to have more women on this show. And so when it occurred to me to invite Kim, I was doubly excited because she's a woman. And also, she has a lot of excellent information in her book. After our conversation, I played a speedball soon after I talked to Kim on bridge base, and I got to two slams where I was declaring in that speedball. And they were not draw trumps and claim. They required a little bit of handling. And I noticed that I had the thought that I don't play slams well. I sort of had an expectation that I wasn't going to get the most out of my own play on the hand. And just after having spoken to Kim and seeing how this type of self-talk is sabotaging, it really helped me just to notice it and then put that to the side. And I did end up making what I think were the best plays, and I made both contracts. So there are practical advantages to be gained through listening to this conversation.
So the way I suggest people approach the whole mental management process is that if you think of mental tools or the mental management skills like a bit of a toolbox, and just like you have when you started playing bridge, you had to learn a whole bunch of bridge conventions, and you had to learn a whole series of different aspects relating to the bridge game. And you couldn't learn all those right at the beginning. You had to, start with basic bidding, and then you would add some things like declare a play, or how to finesse, or how to count, and all those sorts of things. And so over time, bridge players built up a set of skills. And mental skills are exactly the same. So there's a whole variety of mental skills that you need, how to focus, how to concentrate under pressure, how to overcome distractions, how to set goals, and how to deal with adversity or setbacks that occur. And you can't learn all of those immediately. So you have to say, well, which area of my game do I think I want to try and improve? And so it might be one of the people I spoke to, they said that the thing that they struggled with was when they had a bad board, they couldn't let it go. And they were sitting there thinking about what they should have done. And then the next board, they would make an error because they weren't really concentrating on the next board. They were still thinking about, why didn't they bid the slam, or why didn't they take that chance that was presented to them? So if you say, well, okay, I'm going to work on that aspect. So I'm going to work on at the end of each hand, when I've had a disaster, I'm going to go, okay, that disaster, that's gone. I can't change that now. The only thing I can change is my next board and how I focus on the next board. So I'm going to do something to make myself refocus. And that might be I make a little note on my scorecard, and that gives me permission to let that hand go. So you could do something like that. But it takes a lot of practice, just like you had to practice to learn your bidding or learn all your bridge conventions. You actually have to practice this. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to do that and it'll be perfect straight away. No, I have to do this consistently and practice it consistently to try and let it go. So does that make sense?
Yeah, when you talk about the making a mark on your scorecard, is that something you do yourself?
So no, I don't do that myself because actually, that's not true. I do occasionally make put a little tick next to a board that I want to discuss with my partner afterwards. But I'm sort of how can I put it? I'm a bit of a, that's one of my areas that I need to improve. I tend to sit there fuming over the last board that this thing went wrong, and why did I do that? How could I have been so stupid? Why didn't I pay attention to that pip? Or why did I turn my card over so quickly and now I missed what the opponents played? Because I've played too quickly. So it's one of those things that I'm trying to work on improving. That's one of my improvement goals. I have lots, though.
Well, I wonder, and I'm going to get more specific about this. The reason I ask is because I wonder if like that gives you, like, writing that mark on your scorecard gives me permission to, like, okay, I know I'm going to revisit this. Like, this is a marker that I know that I'm going to revisit. So that's why I asked, because I was wondering if that was like the process.
Yeah. So it's like, so you make the mark and that gives you permission to let it go. And then you might have a word that you use to refocus for the next board. So you say, okay, it's over, next board, focus, sort of thing. That kind of thought process runs through your mind. And then I think in the book I talked about having like a little mantra at the start of the board to kind of get your mind back into focus when something has occurred that's been a bit of a disaster. And the other suggestion I made to one of the pairs I worked with a little bit was that because bridge is a pairs game, so your partner can help you. And if your partner knows that when there's been a disaster that you're going to be sitting there stewing over that and not focusing properly for the next board, well, they can help you by saying, look, I think I need a little break here. So they take the opportunity to give you the break. They don't try and move on to the next board. Now, if you have lots of disasters, you can't do that on every board, of course, because you'd never finish the round. But it is a way to say to your partner, look, I know you're going through something here. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to take a break so you've got time to process that thing that happened. Because it's not so much just if you give away an over trick or something like that, you might not let that go. But when you've had a real hand that you really know is going to be bad for you, it's that kind of thing.
Can you give me a specific example of when you've done this with your partner, like where you saw something happening in your partner and you were able to use this type of action, type of practice?
Yeah, so I was playing in an event with Anna, my female partner, and I could see she was really, really tired, and she'd made a couple of uncharacteristic errors. And I thought, well, what can I do? So to try and give us some time to regroup. And she, so I said, I sort of said to her, look, I think I need to get a drink. Would you like me to get you a cup of tea? So I went out and I got her a drink and myself a drink just to give her time to kind of try and regroup, because she was looking really, really down because she made these mistakes and she really wanted to do well in this event, and we were kind of traveling okay, and then we had this really, really bad round. And it was sort of like, well, in the middle of the round, can I do something to try and get her past that little energy hump, if you like, that she was obviously lacking a little bit of energy. She was tired. We travelled in to the event. The flights had been a bit delayed and there'd been a bit of a disaster getting there. So, it was just one of those things that if I could do this and help her get past that area. And afterwards she said to me, oh, thanks for doing that. I really was so tired in that round. I'm really sorry. I didn't play at my best. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter. The round's gone. Let's try and do better on the next one, sort of thing. So, so that's the kind of thing I'm thinking of, that you can take an action that will help your partner.
It sounds like you're doing it from an empathic place too. You're not like, I've had a partner once who I love dearly, and sometimes it was challenging for me because she would see the type of lack of focus, and sometimes it was hard for me to hear what she would say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it really is hard because, as players, when we're competitive, we all want to do well. We want to be on the winner's circle, and when we have when we lose a round quite dramatically, when we have a bad board and we know, oh God, we've given away 10 imps there because of a silly mistake. It's really, really hard to stay positive for the rest of the round. And I guess that brings me to a really, really nice story. So I did some work with some members of the Australian Open team. This was way back before I really started writing any articles, or, I had the first conversation about mental management with David Morgan, who was the captain of the Open team. And he said, look, would you be willing to give a talk to the members of the Open team? And being in Australia, they're all in different locations. There were 2 in Melbourne, and there were some in Sydney, and there were some in Canberra or wherever. So I couldn't actually do it with them as a group. So I met with each pair separately, which was actually quite good because it meant that the pair knew each other's issues and strengths and weaknesses. But, sharing your strengths and weaknesses with your bridge partner is one thing, but sharing it with the rest of the team's kind of a bit more, some people might struggle with that concept. So it worked out quite well. So I met with all of them, and I had a little presentation, and I went through, here's some things you could think about as you go away. And I talked about, doing some pre-match preparation and thinking about what might go wrong, and what could you do if something went wrong. So, for example, if your luggage got lost on the flight, what are you going to do? Because you might get stressed out because you've got no clothes to wear, or you're smelly or whatever because you're wearing the same clothes that you had to wear yesterday and you don't have time to wash them and all that sort of thing. So it was all about, what are the things you can do ahead of time at the match? And then what about at the match? What happens when something goes wrong at the match? And here I talked about, what are you going to do if you have a disastrous board? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to get past that? What about when you go back to your score up and you think you've had a good round, and it turns out you've had a disaster because your teammates have played like donkeys, sort of thing. So, I went through all these things, and all of them said, oh, we all took something away, but I sort of had the impression, I wasn't really sure if they'd really taken on board a lot of the ideas. And so I'm going to fast forward 6 months, and one of the people that I'd spoken to, they were playing in the national final of an Australian championship, and it was the playoff round, so they'd gone through qualifying and they were in the final, and they started with a complete disaster in the first round. Like, they were down by some huge number of imps. I forget how many it was, but it was like 40 imps or something. And it was really amazing. And they came back and won that event. And one of the guys came up to me afterwards and he said, Kim, he said, I'm often negative. And he said, but I took what you said on board about just stay positive and talk about good boards. Don't worry talk to your teammates about anything they did wrong. Just talk about all the ones that went right. So the slam they did, or, you know, the 10 imps you picked up here or whatever. And he said, I decided I was going to do that. So I did that the whole event, and look what happened. We won. How good was that? So I thought, well, you know, that was pretty satisfying to know that someone had taken my suggestion on board and actually put it into practice, and it actually worked.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote from your book. It says, it said that you like shooting in windy conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I like shooting in windy conditions. That's right. I won my gold medal in windy conditions. So, it was funny though, because people would be, you know, you go to the range, they go, oh, it's pretty windy. It's pretty windy out there today. It's going to be really difficult. I'm thinking, yeah, well, it's windy, but it's the same for everybody. You know, everyone has to deal with that circumstance. Yeah. And so you can approach an event in two ways. You can go in and say, well, this is the same for everyone. I go to a bridge tournament and I say, everyone gets dealt 13 cards. You know, everyone starts at 0. So if you go into an event and you've got this negative mindset, like, oh gosh, it's windy, it's going to be so hard, and yeah, look at that wind, it's blowing my shots out into the 6th ring. And I was looking at some of these people some days and I'm thinking, well, I don't believe that. I don't think it's that windy. You know? So I don't think it's that hard. I think you're making this up. And yeah, it really was, for me, it was taking something that other people saw as an adverse condition and turning that into a positive for me. So everyone else is going to be thinking it's tough. I'm going to just, you know, go out there and do my best and you know, try on every shot and not worry about it's windy or it's sunny or it's hot or it's, you know, I'm sweaty or whatever. It's because everyone's got the same circumstance. Yeah, so yeah, it was very funny though. So in that particular event that I won in Manchester, so my teammate, she had a poor event, and one of the reasons she had a poor event was because she let little things niggle her. So just before the event, the federation, the International Rules Federation for Shooting had changed some of the rules, and they decided that shooters used to wear these kind of peaked hats that had side flaps on them to help you, you know, focus on the target and not be distracted by things around you. And the federation had decided that you could only have a cap with a peak but no side flaps. And this girl, you know, she'd worn side flaps since she'd started shooting, you know, like, I don't know, 20 years earlier or whatever. And so she struggled with that. She said, there's too much light coming into my eyes and I can't cope and all this sort of thing. And so she really allowed this change to affect her mentally. And she convinced herself that she couldn't cope. And so, of course, she went out and she shot poorly. And you know, it was like a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say, I can't cope with these conditions, and then you go out and you don't cope with them and you say, well, see, I knew I couldn't cope with that condition. So you have to say, well, my approach is more the conditions aren't great, but it's the same for everyone. It's like sometimes you play in a bridge event, and I use this example in my book, that the lighting isn't very good. I don't know if you have venues like that in the US, but some of the venues in Australia, you know, they're in little country clubs or in, you know, terrible town halls, and it's cold or it's dark, or, you know, the air conditioning isn't good and it gets a bit stuffy or whatever. And I just think it's the same for everyone. And you sit down and people are going, oh gosh, it's so dark, I can't see the cards properly and everything. I'm thinking, well, just focus harder, look harder, slow down, take your time a bit more. So, yeah. Yes. So I think being able to say that this is a thing that other people are going to struggle with, and I'm not going to let that affect me. I'm going to accept that this is a condition that's there, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to think about what can I do to improve my own environment, my own performance.
With your own mental management skills, what do you think in bridge? What do you think you're the best? Like, what do you think you really are exceptional at in terms of what you're like the skills that you're talking about in your book?
Okay, so I suppose I think my best skill is my determination. So I don't mention that in my book, but it's like I've set goals for myself right throughout my bridge career. So when I started, I learnt standard, and then I thought, well, what would make me a better player? Well, maybe make a better player. I would be a better player if I knew ACBL, because I would understand how it works and how to defend against it better. So I learned ACBL, and then, so over time, I've all throughout my my bridge career, I've set different goals along the way, and said, okay, if I can understand how this system works better, then I can defend better against it. If I read these books, then that will give me more knowledge. And if I have more knowledge, I will become a better player. And, in any sport or any skill, it does take a long time to acquire enough knowledge to be really good at it. But for me, I think being able to set goals and to analyse my performance, I think that's my strongest skill, which is not really a mental skill, I suppose.
Well, I mean, you're the expert on that, so
I wouldn't call myself an expert.
On mental skills, I think you're certainly the expert in the between the two people in this conversation. I think you're the expert.
Okay. Thank you.
So I've been rereading through the book in preparation for this interview, and last night, so last night I played in a match, 25 boards with Adam Grosek, a young man who I met through Double Dummy, who's featured in the film, and he's a very good player. And it was great because I'd been reading your book, and I was making these errors that I think when I read through your book the first time, I was sort of like, it was before I was planning on speaking to you. It was a while ago. And so I sort of took it lightly, like some of what I read. And last night I showed up, and so what happened? So I didn't know how to show my hand, and I thought that we had missed a game. And so then I sort of checked out on the hand, and we could have beaten their part score, but I made a play that just didn't make any sense. And so I allowed him to guess the declarative to guess one of the side suits. And what I love about your book and the concepts that are in your book is that all of a sudden I had a way of categorizing this, and it just made it all like, oh, I can kind of tie that up in that. And like, this is a problem. This is a problem for me. This is an area where I can improve. So I think your book is really is a treasure trove of places for certainly a bridge player, certainly for me as a bridge player to really be at the table.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. The book, a few people have read the book. So Ron Klinger, do you know Ron? Yeah, Ron Klinger.
I know
He's
Ron's
written
name.
loads and loads of books.
Yeah, I know his name well. I don't really know that much about him, honestly, though.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's been around bridge for a long time, been on a lot of Australian teams and been quite successful as a teacher and author and so on. And I went up to Ron, and I know he's interested in psychology of bridge and how it works and all that. And he's pushed for quite a long time to have more work done on the psychological side of things for our Australian teams. And anyway, so I went up to Ron, and we were at a national event, and I said, "Oh, Ron, this was before the book was published. Look, I think you know I'm writing a book." And he said, "Well, I didn't know that." And I was thinking, okay, all right, well, yeah, I'm writing this book, and would you write a foreword for me? And he said, well, look, Kim, I'll write a foreword, and then you can decide whether you want to use it or not, because I might not like your book. It's like, okay, yeah, well, that's probably a fair call. So anyway, so it was quite funny. He said, I won't be able to do any work on it for 3 weeks. And then 3 days later, I got the first set of comments back from him. So it was very funny. He was very keen to read it. Anyway, so he told me he read it twice, and then he wrote this really nice foreword. And one of the things he put in it was that, which is on the front page of the book, that he wanted to bar all his opponents from reading my book because he thought it would help so much. And I thought that was such a nice comment.
Yeah.
And, some of the people who've reviewed the book, quite a few of them have said to me that they, different people have said, I like this chapter or I like that chapter. And I think that's really, really interesting, because no one said, I didn't get anything out of it. And that was really the aim when I started writing it, because for me, I want to play against people who are playing well. I don't want to play against people who are making mistakes. And I think when we go to a tournament, we don't get, none of us who are good players get much satisfaction out of playing against weak players and beating them up. It's it's painful almost, because you've got people who are, they haven't been playing for so long and their skills aren't so good, and that they could improve, but then it's not a challenge. Whereas if you sit down and, you've played with Sartaj and he's a great player, and if you sit down and play against Sartaj and you can do something that that allows you to win against the good players, that is really what's satisfying. And if you can make the good players better, then then everyone will get better. If you can improve the pool of talent, then it's better for everyone, because the game is more enjoyable when you're playing well than when you're making mistakes. So it's you're nodding away there. I can see that.
No, I mean, I think you're really speaking the truth. I think you're really, you're really onto something when you say that. I mean, I'm thinking, honestly, we're just wrapping up a best of the setting trick. And I was thinking that which we will do another one, that this would that audio right there would be the audio that I would choose for the best of.
Yeah. It's it really is. My bridge partners. There's this thing about online bridge, playing on BBO, and when competitions are run on BBO, and people say, "Oh, I'm pretty sure they were talking to each other, or reading their notes." There's this whole scenario that goes on with online. And my bridge partner has a completely different approach. He says, well, I don't care if they cheat, because if I can beat them and they're cheating, that makes me better, So he's like, it means that I'm a going to be a better player. If I'm playing against people and they're reading their notes or doing whatever, I don't care, because I want to beat them when they're doing their best, when they're trying to play at their best. So I think that's a really, really interesting spin on it.
Well, that sounds like exactly the person who would be your bridge partner. I mean, based on what I've read in the book, I think that sounds like the perfect bridge partner for you, because he's got, I mean, that's a great attitude to have. I mean, I've heard people, I heard somebody talking about somebody cheating online yesterday, and anyway, that was far from either of our minds when I was listening to him. So that's Is this Jamie? Is this Jamie?
That's Jamie. Yeah, Ebury. Yeah. So Jamie's very. He's a mathematician. So he designs the system, and he's always saying, if you can find, this is the system we play, but if you can find a better method or you have a better idea, tell me about it, because I want to be playing it.
Yes,
I don't want to keep the system that we have if it's not the best. So I want the best system, but it's everything has to have a logic to it and be, give you the best percentage chance of success. So it doesn't, he doesn't want to change things because for the one hand, it's more, well, this is mathematically the best way to do things. So this is the way we're going to bid it.
There are some examples in the book, which I have right here, Gaining the Mental Edge at Bridge, of some system that you all play. Like, for example, you play one no trump, two diamonds. This is just you and your partner. One no trump, two diamonds by responder is any game force.
Yes.
And then you bid three clubs showing five spades, 3-3-2.
Yeah.
So, like, you're talking about learning ACBL at the start earlier, and I've never come across this before. So what is that? What is your response structure to partners opening a no trump?
Oh, okay. So basically it's relays. So two diamonds is any game force by partner. And so partner now shows, two hearts shows four clubs and four of a higher suit, or 5+ clubs. And then, so for example, if I responded then two diamonds, two hearts, two spades now would ask again, well, what have you actually got? And so you can relay out your partner's hand and you can find out exactly what they've got. So you can decide whether you want to play in 3 no trumps or 4 of a major or whatever. Then if it were 1 no trump, 2 clubs, that says bid 2 diamonds. So 2 diamonds can be passed now, or any bid now is an invitational hand. So 2 hearts says I'm an invitational hand with 4 or more hearts, and 2 spades says I'm invitational with 4 or more spades. And now if you're a maximum, you can show support for the major, whether you've got 3 or 4 card support, or you can just bid 3 no trumps, or you can bid 2 no trumps sign off, or you can pass 2 spades and play in a 4-3 fit if you've got a minimum hand. Maybe you're playing in a 4-3 fit, maybe you're playing in a 5-3 fit sort of thing. So it allows the methodology behind the system. It allows you to find the best fit. It allows you to sign off in 2 diamonds. It allows you to, show singletons by responder. So game going hand with a singleton, so forth. Allows you to bid to slam because you can ask partners range usually at the 3 level and then sign off in 3 no trumps or 4 of a major. So
yeah, you had one sequence where you, I think 2 no trump was key card in an auction.
Which I had 2 no trumps key card,
which I had not seen before.
Jamie is described by players around here as the key card king. So we key card everywhere. We don't cue bid ever, almost. The only cue bids, if we make a cue bid, it's a void. So it's quite funny. Key carding at the 2 level is pretty neat. You can sign off way low.
What do you do if you're a responder and you've got like 5 spades and a weak hand opposite a no trump opener?
Just bid 2 spades.
I see.
To play.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. So I find it works pretty well. We seem to get to the right place, pretty much all the time. There's always the one hand that it won't work for, but every system has one hand that it won't work for, unless you have 1,000 pages of bridge notes. And I'm terrible at learning bridge notes, so 1,000 pages, no, there's no way I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree.
I'm envious of. I was going to say I'm envious of the people that can just pick up a set of bridge notes, read them, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to play. And I'm like, but it takes me weeks to learn a new system. That's why I don't ever want to change it. Yes. You were going to say how.
I want to ask you some more questions about your shooting background.
Okay.
About your shooting background. You let's see. You were 18 when you learned to shoot.
That's right. Yeah.
What happened?
What happened? So I went to university, and at university they had a whole have orientation week. I think in the US it's got a different name. I can't think what it's called, but it's like the first week where you go along freshman week or something, and they had all the different clubs and societies. They have tables set up in their quadrangle, and you could go around and talk to all the different clubs. And so I was kind of sporty, so I spoke to all the different sporting clubs, so I was talking to the rifle club people, and I said, it sounds like something I'd like to try. So I went along to try it, and I was terrible at it. I was absolutely terrible. There's no other word for it. I was completely hopeless. In fact, the first event that I ever went to in rifle shooting, or the first competition, they gave me an encouragement award because I was so bad. I finished last. And the guy who was presenting it, a few years later, I won this event that I had gone to and come last in. And he said, I'm really embarrassed because a few years ago I said that this person would never make a shooter, and I've been eating my words ever since, sort of thing. So there you go. So, but anyway, so why did I continue with shooting? Well, it was kind of 2 reasons. One was there were 3 or 4 people who were also taking it up who was doing the same course as I was, and so I made some friends at university from the outset. But the second thing was, the most important thing was that the shooting club had 90% men. And so as a young single woman, how good was this? I thought, what a great sport. So that was how I came to take up shooting.
Is the John who your book is dedicated to, was he also like your shooting coach? Was he is that your husband, or are there 2 different Johns in your life?
No, there's only one John, and John's my husband, and I didn't actually meet him through shooting.
Greatest supporter.
Greatest supporter, greatest supporter. So I met John through work, and we both worked at the same company, Kodak, which is kind of not so big as it once was, but so we met at Kodak, and eventually he took up shooting for a little while, but he doesn't shoot now. He races pigeons.
Wow. That's more obscure than bridge.
It is more obscure than bridge, that's right.
Like by a mile.
By a mile, yes. So they call them pigeon fanciers. And there's a whole science around pigeon racing.
I'm sure.
Yes.
So you liked that there were men at the shooting club. That's what brought you back.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sport was quite fun. And when I started, it was summer, so it was actually quite nice. You know, later on, if I'd started it in winter, I'm not sure I would have continued, because it was pretty miserable on some of the shooting ranges in the winter time. But yeah, there were a few guys there, and we used to hang out after shooting, and we'd go out to dinner, or we'd sort of hang out together. And I had a few boyfriends in the shooting club, so yeah, that was really how I started. And then after about so I was terrible when I started, but after about 6 months, I kind of got the hang of it, and I started to do well. And I did a lot of practice, and I just kept doing better, and eventually went along from there. So yeah, it was a very exciting time in my life. And it wasn't actually till quite a long time after I started shooting that I found that they had shooting in the Commonwealth Games, and there were trials being run. So I went to the trials, and I made the trials on my first attempt there. So my partner and I went to Canada for the first Commonwealth Games I competed. And that was a really amazing event, because when you go to an event like that, and it's a bit surreal, because you're in a village with all the other athletes, and it's like Christmas. Everyone's nice to you all the time. So you've got people cooking for you and making your bed and doing your laundry, and it's just so nice. And it's like Christmas. Everyone's nice to everyone at Christmas. Commonwealth Games exactly like that. Yeah. And so we had the opening ceremony, and you walk into the arena when the opening ceremony's on, and there's all these people yelling and screaming and carrying on and going berserk. And at that point, I think my heart rate went up to about 180. And I'm thinking, I better get this heart rate down before the event starts tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll never be able to hit the target. So, yeah, but it was very, very exciting time. And, it was great fun. And, my event was first event. And my partner and I were successful. So it was just the most amazing experience. That was kind of like the end of that Commonwealth Games. I was like, okay, I have to start working for 4 years' time, try and do it again and do better. So it was a brilliant time of my life.
You were successful. What do you mean? What does that mean?
Yeah. So my partner and I, we won the gold medal in the first event.
Wow.
So it was really, really exciting. And it's a nice story, because my partner, so in that event you shoot pairs, and then you shoot an individual event. And so in the pairs event, which was the first event, I shot a bit quicker than she did. And so I'd finished, and I was watching her shoot and finish her shoot, and she didn't look like she was in the zone. She looked like she was having a rough day. But she tried. I watched her try every single shot, and some people, when they're having a bad day, they'll go, oh, well, I'm this is terrible, and they give up. You can see they give up. They just shoot really fast and just try and get it over and done with. I don't want to be here anymore. This is going so badly. But she really, really tried. And because she, I attribute my gold medal to her, not to my score, even though I had the best score on the range on the day, but to her score, because she tried to the end of her match. She had a good series in the last series. And when we finished, we were tied with another country. And so they do what's called a countback. I think they do countbacks in bridge now. It goes on your number of imps, or your number of, I I can't remember how the scoring works in bridge, but they do a count back in your last set or number of sets. Anyway, in shooting, they do last 10 shots. So they added the score together for our last 10 shots, and ours was better than the other team. So we won because we had a better finish. And I sort of think, well, if she'd given up or hadn't tried right to the end, you know, that was the difference between winning and losing. And that really struck home to me, how you have to make sure that even when you think an event's going badly, and in bridge it's easy to think about, you know, your results are going poorly in this round, or I've made this mistake, or this sort of thing, or I've missed that game, or I've missed that slam. But I say to myself, when I've had one of those rounds, well, if it's teams, it's the same at the other table. You know, they're doing the same crazy stuff at the other table. So that was a difficult hand to bid to. So they're not going to get that right at the other table. You know, and so I try and stay positive by saying to myself, they're going to be screwing this up at the other table as well. So, you know, to me, I think keeping determined to the end and not giving up is probably my biggest mental strength.
What year was this that you won the gold medal in Canada at the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, so that was 1994.
And was that was one of the, like, so Lanny Bassam is somebody that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Was he involved with, had he come and spoken to the Australian rifle team at that point?
Yeah, so he came out in about 1985 and spoke, I think it was 1985, and he spoke to the rifle team, and I wasn't there at that event, but an American friend of mine who I met on one of my trips, he said to me, "Oh, you should get these tapes from this guy. You know, they're really good. I think you'll really like them." And he posted them to me, and there were like 6 tapes, and the audio quality was terrible. It was just terrible. But you know, the concepts that Lanny talked about were many of the concepts that I've adapted for my book and related them to bridge.
Yeah.
And he'd say. He talked about when you do analysis, right? And he said he used to do analysis of his shots, where his shots had gone. Like, you know, he'd have a high shot. Oh, yeah, I got a high shot there. And, you know, I got one at 8 o'clock down there. And, oh, yeah, I dropped my first shot, blah, blah, blah. And he said after a while, he said it got to be the point his scores went down. And he was looking at it and he was thinking, well, it's because every time I get one of these bad shots, I'm writing down and reinforcing, you know, why I got this bad shot. Oh, yeah, you know, I tensed up there and everything. And so he decided that what he needed to do was focus on his good shots. So it wasn't about what did I do wrong to get that bad shot. It was about what did I do right to get that good shot. And so it was more about changing your mindset and being more positive to rather than focusing on this negative sort of aspect. And so when I spoke earlier about the guy in that event in Canberra where they won the final, and that was that same concept, you know, you're not talking about the 10 imps you lost on that board because you didn't bid the slam. You're talking about the 10 imps you gained because you made that game that they went down in at the other table. And then you can talk to your teammates about, gee, you must have defended that well to defeat that contract because they should have made it, you know, that sort of thing. So it's it works for both sides. Yeah. So I listened to these tapes from Lanny and I tried to do some of the things. And one of the things he talked about in it was the whole idea of making these positive affirmations. And my background is science, and I was thinking positive affirmations. It sounded like, you know, witchcraft to me almost. You know, it just didn't sound like my kind of thing at all. So, but when I was going to my third Commonwealth Games and I wanted to win the individual gold medal. I'd won 2 pairs events and I really wanted to win an individual event for myself internationally. And so I thought, well, I have got absolutely nothing to lose by trying this concept. You know, it's a no-lose situation. I haven't been able to do it in the past. And if I do this, maybe it will make a difference. So, so I used to write in my scorebook after every training session, I am the Commonwealth, 2002 Commonwealth Games individual prone rifle champion. I wrote it down. And I wrote it down so much, I had to believe it. So then when it came true, that was good. And so I'm still not quite convinced about the positive affirmations. I put that in there because I know that this sort of concept works for some people. But, for me, it worked in that particular occasion. And, so maybe I need to start writing something for bridge like I am the, Australian champion or something. I just haven't decided which event it is I want to win.
Yeah, I ordered a copy of one of Lanny's journals, and I like how he frames it. Actually, he calls it's your performance analysis, because it's about how did you perform, like you performed, and I think that's a cool way of looking at reviewing oneself.
Yeah, that's right. So I know that in the book I talk about doing the spreadsheet analysis of your performance. So I used that a few years ago. Sometimes you're playing when you're new to something, so you're on an improvement curve. And so when I started playing bridge, I wasn't very good when I started, and I improved a lot in the first few years. And so I changed partners a few times because, when you start, you can't, the champion doesn't want to play with the beginner, if you like.
Right.
If you're a youth player, it's much easier because I think youth players get a lot of support, but, in a normal club. So you have to try and, you have a partner and then you outgrow that partner and you have to try and find a new partner because, it's not satisfying to play with somebody if they're making mistakes all the time and you want to improve,
right?
And so as I moved through partners, so I was playing with this one of these partners, and I kind of felt at the time like that I'd advanced past her, but she played for quite a long time, and so it's hard to know. So I thought, well, I'll do an analysis. I'll go through hands after every competition we play. I'll go through all the hands, and I'll categorize all the boards where we have a mistake. And I didn't worry about the subjective mistakes, like, where, maybe you could have drawn an inference. It was just like, what are the glaring mistakes? Did you misplay that hand? Did you misbid? Did you make the wrong lead? Did you pull the wrong card? All those kind of mistakey kind of things. And I just did it. I did it for about, 4 or 5 months, and I just came up with a percentage. And I looked at the percentage and I said, well, okay, it's time for me to find another partner because I think I've moved past, there's the percentage mistakes, her versus me. There were more for her than me, quite a lot. So, it's time to move on because you want, it would be nice to play with a partner who makes much fewer mistakes than you if they will tolerate playing with you. But generally speaking, most successful partnerships, the partners are approximately equal. They might have slightly different strengths in one area or another area, but they're roughly they treat each other as peers rather than as a strong and a weak player. So for me, doing that analysis was really, really helpful in decision-making process of knowing when it was time to change partners and when it was time to move on and when it was time to set new goals.
Did you notice that my spreadsheet is called the Kim F?
I did.
Spreadsheet.
I'm honoured. And I thought, I looked at, I know you won the teams at the Gold Coast, was it, last year?
We won the qualifying, I think. Yeah, I think we won the qualifying.
You won the qualifying. That's right. And I was thinking, wow, you've taken on board this idea, and you're obviously a very fine bridge player already. So, I'm very flattered that you did that. And I saw you added a few extra columns to assess. Yeah. So I think that's that's really good. Are you finding it helpful?
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking about it and I'm framing it right now in terms of like what I've read of Lanny's work. And I've been onto his website a little bit, and I wonder about that spreadsheet. Like it feels like it's geared more towards, let's say, the negative. And so I wonder like how you do it in your own performance and goal setting, and how you incorporate the spreadsheet.
Yeah. So for me, it's sort of like it's designed as a training tool for me to identify areas that I need to work on. So for me, I tend to work on things like card combinations. How do I know, work better on card combinations? Or, I use it to try and identify, which areas of my game should I be trying to work on to improve? If you map over time that your performance in areas, so you could turn that spreadsheet around, and you could go, instead of counting the errors, you could say, how many hands did I count properly? Okay, how many and what percentage was that? And then map your percentage over time. Is your percentage improving? So if you said, I didn't count the pips on every hand, well, how many hands did I actually count the pips on? So you kind of flip it around. Rather than counting the mistakes, you count the good stuff. And that would be more in line with Lanny's kind of work. So you'd be reinforcing what did you do right rather than what did you do wrong.
I noticed. So last night we finished playing at like it was before 11 p.m., but it was pretty late here. And so I was going through the boards, and I was like, it was like when I got to a board that I didn't have a problem with, it was really nice because I could just skip that one. So I know, and the other thing I was wondering, like it's easy just to categorize it like as an X, but also there's like what level of detail do you go into in terms of like, do you annotate the individual hands that you where you made the error, or like how good is your record keeping?
Oh, my record keeping's dreadful. It's really poor. So I tend to just try and get the area that I want to work on. So it's sort of more like,
gotcha.
Is this an area of my bridge that I want? I don't go into as much granularity as that, but maybe if I were a better player, I would have to go into more granularity because I'd be looking for, what aspect can I improve? But, it's kind of interesting that if you watch any of the World Championship finals or any of those kind of big events, and you see those really, really top bridge players, most of the time, it's really surprising that they will make at the mistakes that they will sometimes make, and to me that looks like concentration and match fitness, or tiring. I'm tiring towards the end of a match, and therefore I'm making more errors. So while you might use the spreadsheet to work on improving your overall skills, at the end of the day, when you go to an event, it's often the silly mistakes that cost the most, more so than whether or not, that card combination, or whether maybe you could have made this play instead of that play, kind of thing. They're not always the ones that cost the most. Often it's just flat out errors.
So what are you doing presently? You said you're working on card combinations. How are you doing that, like in a daily practice?
Oh, so essentially, well, I'm actually working on two things. So card combinations. So every time I'm playing a hand and I come across a combination, I think I have to think about how would I play this combination. Then I get my, in the Bridge Encyclopedia, it's got all those card combination things. Yeah, so I go and look them up, and I go through and read them. So I have my little card combination book. I think I've got it right here. And there we go. So I have a printout of it. So here's my little card combination book, and I go through and I find the ones, and I read up on them, and that's how I work on card combinations. And I'm also I'm working on my partners wanted to put some more relays into our opening bid structure. So I've been working on learning that, which is very slow for me. I'm very bad at learning system. I think when you're younger, it's easier to learn new stuff.
Mm. Do you think that you have reached a level in bridge that is comparable with the level that you achieved in your shooting career?
I think I think I probably have a little bit further to go. I think I can improve more at bridge. And in fact, I know I can improve more at bridge. I know there is more that I can work on and get better at. And I think that in some of the analysis I did on the top level players, they all identified concentration as a major factor that influences their performance or lack thereof. And I think for me, concentration, I can improve my concentration. If I'm sitting in the bridge room and something's going on at the table next to me, I'm looking over there. I'm like a sticky beak. What's going on? What's happening? And that's bad. You want that to be ignored, because you need to just focus on what's happening at your table and what's happening in your space. So I think that for me, I can improve my concentration and focus at the table. And I can pay more attention to the pips, and I can pay more attention to counting the hand and thinking more before I play. I play too fast. I have so many errors. I've got like a list. And, And when I wrote the book, when I used the hands in the book, a lot of the hands, they were hands I played. And it was like, oh yeah, on this hand, I really screwed this up. I didn't count this properly, or I didn't think about this. I played this card and I was like, what have I done? I've completely missed the chance to defeat this contract because I didn't think about that enough before I played. So I think I can get better. So no, I haven't reached the same level yet.
How do you practice that? How do you practice not playing too fast? How do you drill that one?
How do you drill that into you? Well, I don't know. I do everything at the speed of light. So, I'm not sure how to practice it. I know that the Chinese guys talk to me, or someone told me that the Chinese people, they teach their juniors before they play a hand, they have to do this thing called blow. So before they can play a card, the dummies come down and they have to think about the bidding, and this is if they're declarer, have to think about the bidding, and then they have to think about the opening lead. The bidding. Then they have to count their losers. Then they have to think about the opening lead and the inferences associated with that. And then they have to count their winners. And then I added one more to that. I added a D, and I said, you have to decide what your line of play is going to be. You have to make a decision, and at some point during the hand, you might reevaluate that decision. But at the beginning of a hand, you have to decide what your line of play can be. And so I've been trying to do that, because what I find happens is, dummy comes down when I'm declarer, and I look at dummy and I think, oh, this is an easy contract. And then something will go wrong in the middle, and it'll be like, oh, I should have thought more about what could go wrong at the beginning. Yeah. And my partner, Jamie, he said, I've asked him a few times, how come you took so long to play that hand? And he said, well, I don't want to go down in what looks like a simple hand. I want to. So he said, I'm thinking about, can I make this if there's a 5-0 trump break? No, he's thinking about that right at the beginning. And I don't think about that enough, So I can look at a hand and go, yeah, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and yeah, that'll be 10 tricks. But I don't take that. I haven't been taking that next step about, well, what happens if the trumps don't break, or what happens if I get stuck in the wrong hand, or am I going to get stuck in the wrong hand? Is there a risk that can happen? So it's sort of like, for me, it's about having a good process at the beginning of the hand that will make me slow down. And similarly in defence, trying to hold my hand on my card on the table to stop myself turning it over so quickly, so that I have time to look at all the cards that have been played and all the pips, because I miss them sometimes. I know I miss them, and I know I miss them because I've played and turned the card over, and then I've thought, oh, I didn't really actually see that one. So doing some things. So when we get back to the bridge table, when we get back to live bridge, I often play my card and I don't let go of the card, so I can turn it over more quickly. So I'm actually going to start letting it go. I just thought of that then. I'm going to start letting the card go, putting it flat on the table and letting it go, so that I can make sure that I see what's happened.
What are who is at the forefront of really mental skills?
Well, in the bridge world?
Yeah.
You talk about in the bridge world?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, to be honest, I really don't know, because when I started the process of writing the articles and then had this crazy idea to write this book, which actually took me so long to write. I don't think I would have started if I'd known how long it was going to take. If you look in the bridge world, there's millions and millions of books about how to declare and how to defend and how to bid, and there's almost nothing on the mental approach to playing cards. So Who's good at it? I think the guys that are winning at the Worlds, and I think they must be good at it. You know, they must have good mental skills. But are they doing that consciously, or are they doing that just because they've played for a long time and they know that that's how they can win? So yeah, I don't know that yet. Maybe I need to do another survey. Tell me how you do it.
Who was the one?
I can tell you that Lanny Basham did a survey of Olympians, and this was when he started doing all his work on mental management. And he said that of all the people at the Olympics, you know, all the champions that are there, he said they all think, 90% of them, they thought that 90% of winning was all mental, because once your skills are all there and your skills are all good, and, you know, all the Olympians, they've all got good skills. Wow. They can all, you know, all the shooters, right. They can all shoot, they can all hit the 10 and everything. But it's their mental, how they approach it mentally and what's happened in their past to influence that mental approach that makes the difference. So there's a, to give you an example, there's this German shooter lady. I think she might be retired now, but she was, she'd won world championships and, you know, top German shooter. And I saw her in training in Germany, and she would shoot perfect scores all the time, you know, really, really good. When she went to the Olympics, and she really wanted to win an Olympic medal in her event. And, you know, so this is someone who shoots perfect scores in training, perfect scores in lots of competitions, won a world championship, goes to the Olympics, shoots her, you have sighting shots, like warm-up shots, all her sighting shots, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Changed to the match. First shot, 8. 10, 10, 10. She shot 60-shot match. First shot was an 8, 59 tens. That is match pressure.
Wow.
That is nerves. That is mental. That's just it's your mental, it's her mental skill that's causing that. It's not technique, it's not anything else. It's the mental side of things.
So you said on her first shot she shot an 8, and then all the rest were 10s.
Yes. All the rest
did that mean she did not win because of the 8?
She didn't win because of the 8 at the beginning. Because at that time, you carried your score through to the final, and she went into the final, and catching up 2 points in that event, very, very difficult. Very difficult. Not impossible, but yeah, pretty close to impossible.
It sounds so different from bridge. Like bridge, you can have a disaster and still win, you know, like you still
win. Yeah, that's right. Bridge and golf. Bridge and golf. You can, you know, in shooting, it's the only sport I know that if you make a mistake like that, you have to hope that everyone else makes a mistake, because you can't catch it up. Whereas in bridge, you know, in golf, you can have a double bogey on one hole, and, you know, then you can get an eagle on the next hole. You know, you can kind of catch up. But and in bridge, you can have a bad round. You can't have too many bad rounds, but, you know, you can have a bad round or a bad board, and you can catch that up. You look at some of the result sheets, and there's imps flying everywhere, aren't there?
What's at the top of your bridge goals right now?
Yeah, so my partner and I, our bridge goal is to make the Australian mixed team. So we don't know when the trials will be now, or whether there will be trials next year, or when that will happen. But yeah, that's my goal at the moment, to try and make the Australian mixed team. Yeah. So last year we went very close. We were runners up, but in the trials. But yeah, was a bit disappointing. I got very tired towards the end of the match. I had a terrible preparation for the event, and I got there. I was tired, and I played really badly. I think I played my worst day of bridge in the final. So it was just awful. So I took away some learning from that, and next time I'm going to be stronger.
How was your preparation? Like, how was it so bad? What was so bad about it?
So I played a national event about 10 that had finished about 10 days before. And then I'd had a meeting all weekend, and then I'd had meetings all during the week. And so, and then I got on a plane and flew to the next event. And so I had all this activity going on in my life, and I didn't really, because I'd already played an event, I didn't really give myself a chance to recover, if you like, and to be rested going into the event. So I got there, and I think I was tired. I was mentally tired because I'd had all this stuff going on in my life. Instead of getting there and, feeling fresh, I got there and I felt exhausted on day one. So when you're playing it doesn't matter how long the event is. If you get there and you're tired when you start, you're not going to be at the top of your game, I think. Right. Because bridge, you have to be, mentally alert.
Mm. So when you play in a match on bridge base right now, let's say, when's the last, like what's your process start to finish, like warming up and then processing the results? Like what's the day look like for you?
Oh, so on bridge base, I haven't really been playing any matches on bridge base because I've been too busy. There you go. The last few weeks, I've hardly played anything. But if I were going to play on in a match, I would do a few warm-up hands beforehand. And then when I start the match, I would make sure, the thing I find about playing on bridge base is that it's easy to be distracted because you're in your home and you've got all this other stuff going on. So I think it's important that if I were playing a serious match, I would, go into a separate room and make sure that I was not going to be distracted by my phone or my, other things going on around me. And then at the end, I would go through and review all the hands and see, what could I have done better? What could I have done differently?
What's your favorite cue word?
My favorite cue word is, this is going to sound really funny, but so David Morgan, who I originally spoke to, he said, you need a cue word like silver bullet. So there's my cue word, silver bullet.
Silver bullet. So that's what we're going to...
Silver bullet.
We have this... there's this naming structure when we post these podcast episodes, and there's a subtitle. So we have an intern who's a young bridge player, and he's always asking me, okay, what's the subtitle? So for you, the subtitle is certainly going to be silver bullet. Silver bullet.
Excellent. Excellent.
What? Oh, he said you need a silver bullet, like in terms of ingraining these practices in players. Is that what he meant by that?
I think it was more, that they used to talk about a silver bullet being the perfect bullet or something like that. Yeah, so I think it was sort of around that.
And so he is the captain of the Open team who invited you to speak to the Open team.
Yeah, yeah. So he was. So I was giving him a lift home from bridge one night, and we were talking about different things, and I was talking about shooting and, you know, the mental side and how you had to kind of stay focused and forget it. And he said, "Oh, you know, that probably should apply at bridge as well." And he told me about a hand that he'd had where he'd got to 5 clubs, and he was thinking about, I can't remember if he said he went down in this contract or if he should have bid 6. And anyway, he was still thinking about this hand on the next board, and he made another mistake. And he said, you know, that's something that happens to lots and lots of bridge players. They don't let go of the previous hand, and they're still thinking about it, and then they make another error. You know, when I sit at a table and I see the opponents start to fight about their bridge system or a hand that they've just had, I think, oh, this is excellent, because I know they're going to play like bad the next board. So we were having this conversation, and then as a result of that conversation, he said, well, you know, he was captaining the open team that was going to, I think it must have been Rocklaw, or maybe it was Turkey. I'm just trying to think which event it was. It was somewhere around then. And that was in about 2013. And so that was when I started to speak to some of the open team about these concepts. And then I thought, well, you know, maybe I should write some articles for the newsletter, our Australian magazine. So I started to write some articles, and then after I kind of had 12 topics, and I thought, well, I'll write 12 articles, and then each article could become a chapter in the book. But as it turned out, the 12 articles didn't actually translate to 12 chapters very well, because some things had to be merged and I had to move things around so it made more sense. And, you know, you have to talk about this concept before you can talk about the next one, and so on. So it didn't end up becoming 12 chapters, it became 11. But yeah, they all the stuff on the articles that's on, I also had the website that I put together, so I could put all my material up on that, which is not a great website, I have to say. I don't know, I'm not very good at websites, so I had to learn how to write a website and create it. And if there's any aspiring bridge players out there that want to do work on my website, you're most welcome. But it's it just took me a while to get all that stuff together. And so now I write articles for Australian Bridge, and every time I get a message from the editor, Brad, who asks me to write an article, I think, oh, what am I going to write about? You know, I feel like I've written about all this stuff. I'm not sure I can come up with something new. So every time it takes me a while to think of what I'm going to write about, and then it takes me a long time to write the article, compared with how long it would take me to write an article on a bridge hand, for example. So I can bang out an article on a bridge hand in about 30 minutes. It takes me about a lot longer than that to write an article on a mental concept, because I have to think about what I want to say, and then I have to think about a hand that might illustrate the point nicely, and yeah, takes a while. So yeah.
Well, let's see here. I have some more things written out. I'm starting to think okay, yes. I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
1, do you hunt?
No, I don't hunt. I seriously don't hunt. I've only ever done target shooting. I went hunting once, but it wasn't really hunting. It was more on a friend's farm where they had some animals that were attacking the sheep, sort of thing. So they wanted to, address that problem. But I didn't actually shoot anything. So yeah. So no, I don't hunt. It's not my thing. Traipsing around in the woods, it's not my thing at all.
my last question, and I actually have more questions, but this has become a standard question on the show. There's a Polish player named Jacek Kalita. Do you know of Jacek?
I don't think so.
So it's going to be hard for you to answer whether or not you're better than he is.
Yeah, no, I don't know who that is. It's quite funny because when I went to Orlando and played in Orlando a couple of years ago, and one of the team was saying, "Oh, there's all these good players here," and I was thinking, I don't know any of them. I don't really know any of them. So, I mean, I know kind of some of the big names because they're big names, but most of the people, I don't know them. I have no clue. So that's kind of an advantage because I sit down to play against them. I have no idea who they are. So it's like, it's really, really hard.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes it's good not to know, but I'm pretty sure that he's probably better than me.
All right. Well, we're gonna hold you to that, but anyway, that is a it's fun. It's fun asking that question. He's a good-natured friend, and I can't wait till I see him next, and he's like, and I hope he knows about this, that I've been asking this question, because I haven't talked to him about it. He's a fine player. He's very good.
Right.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap things up here?
I guess I suppose I'd like to just finish up with, when I wrote the book, it was because I thought there was nothing in this area in bridge, and I wanted to be able to give bridge players an insight into how the sporting world kind of works and thinks. And some of them probably know it already, but it seemed to me like an area that was missing. And I hope, but it was really, I guess I could say I was a bit nervous about writing an academic book or a book about sports, sports psychology for bridge, essentially, when I'm not a sports psychologist. But I do actually have a lot of knowledge in the area through experience rather than academia. So the book was designed for, when I wrote the book, one of the hardest things was trying to pitch it at the right level, because I wanted a book that any level of bridge player could read, whether they were beginners or experienced players. And I don't know how successful I was at doing that. I know one of the reviewers said they thought the book was a bit repetitive. And I thought, yeah, well, if you were familiar with the concepts, you'd probably find it a bit repetitive. But if you were new to them, you would probably say, this is all fine. So when people read the book, I do hope that you get something out of it, and think of this as things that you can take or leave. But my biggest tip is warm up before bridge. I think there's no substitute for doing a little bit of mental and physical warm up before you hit the table. And I think you would play better from board one if you do that.
All right. How many copies of the book do you think you've sold? Any idea?
Oh, so not. I don't know if this is good or bad. I don't expect to be getting rich out of this book. But I know it got published late last year, and I got the first report. They send me a report every 6 months, and I think it was just over 300 in the first 6 months. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Someone told me they thought that was good, and I thought, I think that's pretty bad, really.
How did I noticed it's published by Masterpoint Press? How did that come to how did they come?
How did they come? Yeah. So when I was looking for a publisher, and I thought, well, I know I've got lots and lots of Masterpoint Press books on my shelves. And someone said to me, they do this thing called honours books for people who've never been published before. And I thought, well, that's definitely me. And so I just wrote to them and said, look, I've done this book or I'm doing this book, I'm writing this book and it should be finished soon and I want to get it published. And is this something you'd be interested in? And they wrote back, and then I think it took about another 18 months to finish writing the book. So it took a while. But so the other alternative was to go through one of the other publishers that does bridge books. But then I thought I might have to be responsible for all the marketing and distribution and everything, and I wasn't really interested in that. So Masterpoint Press are doing all of that work for me. So it was kind of the lazy way of publishing a book. They do everything. I don't have to do anything. I just get the check. So, and the guys there were terrific. They were really, really good. They've been very helpful in the process. And so the books, everywhere they have 150 people around the world that sell books on their behalf, and all those people, they can just order. You can order 20 books or 10 books or however many you want, and they just print them off and ship them to you. So it's it works really well.
How do you how do you grade your the book, what you produced? What do you think? What's your assessment of it?
Oh, it's my first book, so yeah. I think I think I'm pretty happy with it. I think it delivered what I hoped it would deliver, and of course, after it's published, you always find a typo or something, don't you? But it didn't matter that we got proofread 27 times or whatever. But, so I'm pretty happy with it. I think it delivered what I was trying to achieve in the beginning.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I'm enjoying the book, and we're certainly hope that I know I talked to Nabil Edgton, and I asked him about you, and he said that he might pick up a copy, so we might have one sale as a result, at least one sale as a result of this conversation.
Yeah.
I can't remember how I came across it. I don't. Maybe it was reviewed in one of the Bridge magazines. Is that possible?
Yeah.
The Bridge Bulletin?
So Brent Manley did a review in the ACBL. I think it's been reviewed it's definitely been reviewed in Australian Bridge. It's been reviewed in a new Bridge magazine, is it? The English, is it English Bridge? I'm not sure. I know my articles have been translated into French and Chinese. So I'm not sure about other countries, but maybe some of those are translating them and not telling me. But yeah, I know those two countries are doing some things, and the Chinese are actually going to do some experiments on the concepts at one of their universities. So it's very exciting.
There's a picture on the Melbourne Shooting Club website, which I am including in the show notes, of Kim about to take what looks like she's about to take a shot. It's a great photo, and I think it speaks to the level of concentration that this woman brought to shooting and why she got so good at it. I'm going to give one more plug for Kim's book. In Chapter 8, Kim talks about a strategy for performance evaluation, and I now have a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet, a Google Doc, a Google Sheet that I call my KimF spreadsheet, where I track my errors. And a couple weeks ago, I played in a tournament on bridge base, and I thought I played really poorly. And so afterwards, I went and through each of the hands, and I categorized them. And I noticed that I actually, while I did have some really poor plays and they negatively impacted our results without a doubt, on the whole, I actually didn't play as badly as I had thought. And the clarity that I got from just having a framework to go over my results and really studying them just gave me this sense of peace that I hadn't played as badly as I thought I had. So I hope you'll check out Gaining the Mental Edge at Bridge and keep a lookout for Kim on the international scene.